Hello, welcome back to my channel. A bitch is sick as hell. Pretty much since the end of December, I've felt very motivated to make videos, but if you follow me anywhere else online, you'll notice that I've been doing like reels and TikToks and just different things where I don't need to speak because I have been very sick. What I love is that in that time in which I don't have my voice very properly, I have acquired a lot of books and I've wanted to talk to you about a lot of books, but I haven't had the literal voice. But today is a book haul, and I got so many freaking books for Christmas. This is not me showing off. This is not me being flashy and saying, oh my god, look at how special I am and how much money people have spent on me. It's literally because I need some form of accountability in my life, and right now that means is showing all the freaking books that I got, and I have actually read some of them. We'll start off with ones that are either like in the progress of being read or I did read. This is Just Like Mother by Anne Hetzel, and I got this, am I gonna say where I got these from? No, this one was not a gift. I bought this one for myself because it was on sale pre-owned, and I realized it's a freaking signed copy. Like, it's got a signed nameplate in there. This one I'm currently reading. I'm only probably like 20 pages in, and this one is about a woman who has escaped from a cult that she was in when she was younger, and I believe she goes and meets up with one of her friends who has also escaped the cult, and I think she's now into like another different cult situation. And then one that I finished already is Small Game by Blair Braverman. This was one that I started actually right after I picked it up because I got it for Christmas from one of my family members. If you can imagine like the TV show Survivor mixed with Hatchet, this is about a bunch of people, I think it's 4 or 5 people that get recruited to be on this television show where you're going to be out in the wilderness and you need to survive. Some books that I picked up recently, and one of them will make sense in a moment. I got Neon Gods by Katie Robert. I got this pre-owned at the bookstore for myself, and I believe this is a smutty Persephone and Hades retelling, which I'm very interested in. And then I will kind of feed these two into each other, but for Christmas I got Night of the Living Cat Volume 1, and I just recently picked up Volume 2 for myself. This series here is about a world, it's a normal world, and then one day cats, basically if a cat touches you, you turn into a cat. Like, it's kind of like a zombie virus, like you just touch someone, and they turn into a cat. And so it's this weird juxtaposition between like end of days apocalyptic stuff, but then they're also just fucking, it's cats. Like, it's not like zombies, they're not trying to kill them, the cats are just trying to be cute. Some other graphic novels that I got from Jose for Christmas. I got Ice Cream Man Volume 8. I have already read this one, and I'm starting to think I might not continue with this series because if you've seen any of my wrap-ups in which I talk about this series, it is a horror anthology that used to be loosely based around this character, the Ice Cream Man, and basically his like nemesis. At this point, these have just become a series of graphic novel stories, comic stories about grief and loss and death, and it's not so much about the lore of the Ice Cream Man anymore, which is what I was interested in. And then I also picked this one up. This is Clementine Book 1, and this is by Tilly Walden. I saw Sage talk about this, I think, like a month or 2 ago, and this is a continuation of The Walking Dead and The Walking Dead video game in which our main character Clementine is introduced. And I just found it so interesting because it is very much The Walking Dead and like a zombie-esque world, but our main character is missing one of her feet, and so you see her deal with having to like figure out how to get around, especially in like the snow with only one foot, trying to get like a prosthetic foot, as well as like just general trauma. Like, you see a little bit of the video game in this, so you don't necessarily need to know what happened, but I do have that background, and so it was especially heartbreaking at times. Some things that I've also already read, there is Black Paradox by Junji Ito. This one is one of his newer releases, at least in English, and this one is, oh, we're upside down. There we go. This one is about a group of people who have decided that they want to die, and they're going to kind of create a pact to unalive themselves. And they all meet up and they start to realize that some weird creepy things are happening around them wanting to unalive themselves. Yeah, these are just all very troubled people, and troubled things start to happen to them that keep putting off the act of them unaliving themselves. And they get closer and closer and start to change as people, and it's interesting. It's still very dark. It's just a slightly different type of horror that Junji Ito does not usually express. Like, I feel like there's a lot more emotional and like psychological trauma in this and horror. But there's still a lot of body horror if that's what you usually like from Junji Ito. More zombies. I got number 8, volume 8 of Zom 100, which I'm super excited about because they have officially signed on for a Netflix live action adaptation of this series, as well as I think a Hulu or HBO Max anime of the series. But this is a series about a group of people that have created a bucket list. The full name is Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, because these characters are trying to do all these things that they wanted to do when they were in the normal world, but now it's a zombie apocalypse. And so they're traveling all over Japan at this point and just checking off random things. I think from here, it's officially all books I have not read. Homesick, which is a collection of stories by Nino Cipri, and I actually got this from Wheezy. Thank you so much, Wheezy. They wrote these 2 stories, and I really enjoyed that series a lot. It says, dark, irreverent, and wonderfully unbelievable. 9 speculative stories in Homesick meditate on the theme of home and our estrangement from it, and what happens when the family suddenly shifts into, when the familiar suddenly shifts into the uncanny. Foreground queer relationships and transgender or non-binary characters. It delivers the origin story of a superhero team comprised of murdered girls. I have these 2 presents here from Michelle and Yana. Thank you guys. First one being A Children's Bible by Lydia Millette. And I have been so turned off from this book for so long because obviously I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but I am not a religious person. When I see a book that's called The Children's Bible, and I've worked at a bookstore, and I've worked in a children's section of a bookstore, I assumed it was a children's Bible. But this one says it follows a group of 12 eerily mature children on a forced vacation with their families at a sprawling lakeside mansion. Contemptuous of their parents, the children decide to run away when a destructive storm descends on the summer estate, embarking on a dangerous foray into the apocalyptic chaos outside. So it is kind of a fictional retelling, if you can imagine, like, I'm assuming there's going to be like a great flood or something of the like. And then they also got me Scape Racers, which is by Hannah Abigail Clark. And this one is very, it's like on the border between like, I think I'll love it, but also I have no idea what I'm going to think of this book. Skulking near the bottom of West High's social pyramid, Sideways Pike, Sideways, that's their name, lurks under the bleachers doing magic tricks for bottles of Coke. As a witch, lesbian, and lifelong outsider, she's had a hard time making friends. But when the 3 most popular girls pay her $40 to cast a spell at their Halloween party, Sideways gets swept into a new clique. First one here for an anthology is Found, an anthology of found footage horror stories. And this was put together by, I think it was Gabino Iglesias. So this is, just as it says, a combination, an anthology of different authors writing found footage horror. Some of my favorite movies are found footage movies, even if they are cheesy or very campy. This next one, Isolation, the horror anthology, is another anthology of isolation horror. And the big sell on this one for me was Paul Tremblay wrote a story in here. I also have Queer Little Nightmares, an anthology of monstrous fiction and poetry. And just like it says, it's going to be very queer and talking about monsters. Throughout history, monsters have appeared in popular culture as stand-ins for the non-conforming and the marginalized. Relegated to the shadows as objects of fear, revulsion, and hostility, these characters have long conjured fascination and self-identification in the LGBTQ+ community. And over time, monsters have become queer icons. There's striking and playful stories and poems, and they remove queer monsters from the subtext and place them in front and center, subverting the horror gaze to celebrate ideas and identities canonically feared in monster lit. And then we have a little bit of some new releases here. One of my favorite books early on in my booktube-ness here was by Emily St. John Mandel, and that was Station 11. And I have not picked up Glass Hotel because it doesn't really sound like it would be that interesting to me, but this one does. This is Sea of Tranquility. Edwin St. Andrew was 18 years old when he crossed the Atlantic by steamship, exiled from polite English society following an ill-conceived diatribe at a dinner party. He enters the forest, spellbound by the beauty of the Canadian wilderness, and suddenly hears the notes of a violin echoing in an airship terminal, an experience that shocks him to his core. 2 centuries later, a famous writer named Olive Llewellyn is on a book tour. She's traveling all over Earth, but her home is the Second Moon Colony, a place of white stone, spired towers, and artificial beauty. With the text of Olive's best-selling pandemic novel lying a strange passage, a man plays his violin for spare change in the echo corridor of an airship terminal as the trees of a forest rise around him. Something about it just seems very similar to Station 11, where there's a lot of like overlapping story narrative and a little bit of playing with time and how you're perceiving what story takes place where. So I'm very interested in this one, especially because it is taking place over like, I think like pandemic-y kind of stuff, as well as through time and space, literally. And it's really funny. I'm gonna have to wait a little bit to read these because they are quite similar, but not really. But I also got Patricia Wants to Cuddle, and this is by Samantha Allen. I believe this is also another reality show. On this season of The Catch, contestants must compete for love and their lives. When the final 4 women of competition for an aloof, somewhat sleazy bachelor's heart arrive on a mysterious island in the Pacific Northwest, they prepare themselves for another week of extreme sleep deprivation, invasive interviews, and of course the salacious drama eager viewers nationwide tune in to devour. Each woman came on The Catch for her own reasons. Brand sponsorships, followers, and yes, even love, and they've all got their eyes steadfastly trained on their respective prizes. Enter Patricia, a temperamental and woefully misunderstood local living alone in the dark, verdant woods, and desperate for connection. Through twists as unexpected as they are wildly entertaining, the self-absorbed cast and jaded crew each make their acquaintance atop the island's tallest and most desolate peak, finding themselves at the center of an action-packed thriller that is far from scripted, and only a few will make the final cut. More this socially experiment reality TV kind of stuff. I also got Eat Your Heart Out by Kelly DeVos, and this is another YA, so it's very odd for me, but it is it has some like fat rep as well as like zombie stuff. Vivian Ellen Shaw is fat, but she knows she doesn't need to lose weight. She's none too happy to find herself forced into a weight loss camp's van with her ex-best friend Allie, a meathead jock who can barely drive, and the camp owner's snobby son. When they arrive at Camp Featherlight at the start of the worst blizzard in the history of Flagstaff, Arizona, it's clear that something isn't right. Also, this cover is fucking gorgeous. I love it. And then this is one that I actually put off buying myself because I knew I wanted to ask for it for Christmas. This is Lapvona by Ottessa Moshfegh, and I haven't read My Year of Rest and Relaxation yet, but I do have it on my list. In a village buffeted by natural disasters, a motherless shepherd boy finds himself part of a power struggle that puts the community's faiths to a savage test. In a spellbinding novel that represents Ottessa Moshfegh's most exciting leap yet. It's about a boy who I believe grows up with a wet nurse, and the wet nurse, or maybe it's just midwife, not wet nurse. She has this very weird paranormal type relationship with nature, so I think she can actually talk to animals or something of the like. And then I also have Man-Made Monsters, which is by Andrea L. Rogers. I believe it's actually a story collection by them. Oh, and it's YA, which is interesting. This doesn't look like a YA-sized book. Horror fans will get their thrills in this collection. From werewolves to vampires to zombies, all the time-worn horror baddies are here, and so are predators of distinctly American variety. The horrors of empire, the intimate partner violence of dispossession, and so too the monsters of Rogers' imagination that draw upon long-told Cherokee stories of deer women, fantastical sea creatures, and more. Following one extended Cherokee family across the centuries, from the tribe's homelands in Georgia to World War I, the Vietnam War, our own present, and well into the future, each story delivers a slice of a particular time period that will leave readers longing for more. So I do know the author is Cherokee, and then I believe there's also a lot of artwork in here that is by a Cherokee artist or artists. Some of these fit into the I bought them for myself category as well. Recursion by Blake Crouch, which is the author of Dark Matter, which is one of my favorite books from last year, which you will see in a future video. Says reality is broken. At first it looks like a disease, an epidemic that spreads through no means, driving its victims mad with memory of a life they never lived. But the future that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shockwave, unleashed by a stunning discovery, and what's in jeopardy is not our minds, but the very fabric of time itself. In New York City, Detective Barry Sutton is closing in on the truth, and in a remote laboratory, neuroscientist Helena Smith is unaware that she holds the key to this mystery and the tools for fighting back. I also bought Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner, and this is a queer adult romance book about a girl. I believe she works, no, I think she's going to college, and she goes out to the bar and she meets this slightly older woman, and I think they have a hookup. And then it's also like Meet the Parents weekend where people at college are having their parents in, and she finds out that the woman that she hooked up with the night before is actually her best friend or roommate's mother. And so it's an interesting path that needs to be traveled. And I believe I'm going to be buddy reading this with Michelle, so I really hope that we get to read this one soon because it sounds great. Some more things that were not for Christmas, just presents that have kind of accumulated over the past few months. Jose got me this TKO Presents Tales of Horror. It is a horror graphic novel collection. A child soldier faces a horror worse than death in the trenches. A space pioneer faces the hell of a false Eden of her own creation. A little boy's insomnia ends in tragedy that haunts his entire life. It's presenting a collection of 9 bone-chilling and blood-curdling stories by modern comic masters. And then for Christmas, he also got me the full collection of Ascender. I have read Descender several years ago and I don't really remember the full plot, but this one actually takes place, I think, several decades in the future afterward. Yeah, oh no, 10 years after the conclusion of Descender. If you're not familiar with Descender, that was a series about a world where there is, I think, kind of like iRobot, where there is like an AI sentience and an uprising within that, and this takes place afterward. And I actually haven't read any of these ones yet, so I'm not really sure where the plot of this one takes us, except that it's 10 years in the future. Next, we have some more romance before we're getting back to more horror. This one is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake, and this one comes after Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Oh my god. Which I buddy read with Michelle, and we're gonna buddy read this one as well. This one is a sequel, but it's different characters. For Astrid Parker, failure is unacceptable. Ever since she broke up with her fiance a year ago, she's been focused on her career. Her friends might say she's obsessed, but she knows she's just driven. When Prue asks her to be the designer for the Everwood Inn's renovation, which will be featured on a popular HGTV show, Astrid is thrilled. Not only will the project distract her from her failed engagement and help her struggling business, but her perpetually displeased mother might finally give her a nod of approval. However, she never planned on Jordan, Prue's granddaughter, and the lead carpenter for the renovation, who despises every modern design decision Astrid makes. Yada, yada, yada. Queer romance, queer adult romance, and can you look at these hotties, these baddies on the cover here? Very excited for this. Lyssa Kay Adams, A Very Merry Bromance, which is the newest book in the Bromance Book Club series. How many books? Is this number 5 or number 6? Book number 5. And it's been quite a long time since I read one of the Bromance Book Club series, and looks like we're dealing with Colton, who I don't believe I liked at all since book 1. It says, country music's golden boy Colton Wheeler felt the most perfect harmony when he was with Gretchen Winthrop, but for her, it was a love him and leave him situation. A year later, Colton is struggling to push his music forward in a new direction. If it wasn't about to be the most magical time of the year, and if not for the support of the Bromance Book Club, he'd be wallowing in self-pity. It's hard for immigration attorney Gretchen not to feel a little Scrooge-ish about the excess of Christmas when her clients are scrambling to afford their rent. So when her estranged wealthy family reaches out with an offer that will allow her to better serve the community, she's unable to say no. She just needs to convince Colton to be the new face of her family's whiskey brand. No big deal. And then 2 books here at the end. I have Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell, which actually started out as a r/NoSleep subreddit story, horror story. And I first heard about that on the Jenna and Julian podcast when it existed many years ago. They used to read stories from the No Sleep subreddit. And this one had, I think there was a feature from this, or maybe by this author in that podcast. Says, a romantic cabin getaway doesn't go as planned. High up on the windswept cliffs of Pale Creek, Faye and Felix celebrate their new engagement. But soon a chorus of ghastly noises erupt from the nearby woods, the screams of animals, the cries of children, and the mad babble of 100 mournful voices. A dark figure looms near the window in the dead of night, whispering to Faye. As the weather turns deadly, Felix discovers that his terrified fiancée isn't mumbling in her sleep. She's whispering back. And the very last one, this is Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt, a dark, unflinching haunted house novel that takes readers from the well of the literary Gothic up through Brighton's queer scene and out into the heart of a modern-day trans experience. 3 years ago, Alex spent one night in an abandoned house with her friends Ela and Hannah. Since then, things have not been going well. Alice is living a haunted existence, selling videos of herself cleaning for money, going to parties she hates, drinking herself to sleep. She hasn't spoken to Ela since they went into the house. She hasn't seen Hannah either. Memories of that night torment her and her flesh. But when Ela asks her to return to the house, past the keep out signs, over the sick earth where teenagers dare each other to go to venture, she knows she must go. And I think I saw both Sage and Michelle reading this at one point, so I trust y'all. I love your opinions, and I think that if I just read more of your freaking books that you talk about, I will probably have a happier life. All that to be said, I think I've spoken enough and I need to get back to my disgusting cough drop that I've been holding in my hand. Those are all the books that I've hauled in the last few months here, mostly from Christmas, because I pretty much just asked for books for Christmas. I will not talk about them anymore. I do have a goals video that I would like to film in the next couple days or weeks here and share you what I want to do with these, as well as other books that I own for 2023. But overall, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for sticking around. Hopefully I will continue to get better so that I can actually film these videos that I want to talk to you about. Thank you so much if you watched to the end. If you did, please leave me a Christmas tree emoji, since we just got through Christmas, and while my illness is sticking with me, hopefully you guys are feeling good out there. So thank you again, and I will see you next time. Bye.